Welcome once again, guys. I'll be cutting this senator wear with this measurement you see on your screen. And the first thing I'll be telling you is make sure you have your horizontal and verticals all straight. That's the line there and the line also. Make sure they are straight. Then we'll go straight to the creation of the neckline. For the neckline, the first thing I'll do will be to mark 4.5 downwards, then 2 1/4 on the side, and I'll be joining both points with a curve. Now this is the smallest comfortable possible neck for an adult, so you can always increase. Then I will mark my back 9 inches, come down by 2 inches for the slant. Your shoulder is not straight, your shoulder is slanted towards your hand. So I'll be marking my shoulder to chest, and that will be 10 inches. And what I'll be getting will also be responsible for our chest line. So I'll be joining both points with a line, and that line would be our chest line. And I'll be doing the same for the tummy, from the shoulder to the tummy, and I'll be marking 17.5 inches. So I'll do that on 2 different positions, and I'll be joining with a straight line, and that line will be our tummy line. Now for each line, you'll be marking the measurement on that line. For our top length, I would also mark from the shoulder to our desired length. There is no standard length for senator wears. It all depends on whether you want it long as a kaftan or right above your knee or before your knee. So I'll be joining that point to create our top length line. And I will also be marking 2 inches from that point downwards, and that 2 inches will be responsible for the folding on the down line. So this is 2 inches because that is what I want. If you want your folding to be bigger, you can make yours 3 inches or even more than that. Like I said earlier, this neckline is for the minimum comfortable possible neckline. You can always increase to whatever length after you are done. So I'll be marking my back measurement on that slant line. That is my exact back. I made a mistake on the first mark, so the second mark is actually my exact back. Then I'll be taking my perpendicular measurement, that is the straight line measurement, and I'll be transferring that measurement to the chest line as well. I'll be joining both points with a broken line. All I'm doing now is just to create my armhole curve. Now I'll divide that line into 2. Mark that midpoint, come 1 inch forward, then I will join from the shoulder through that 1 inch point to the chest point. Now to get the exact point where my chest will be, I will divide my chest measurement, which is 40 by 4. Then I'll mark. I'll also divide the tummy and mark. Then that hip measurement, I will take it to the top length because I haven't created my hip line. I'll also divide the hip by 4 and mark. Now I would be creating my hip line. So I'll take my shoulder to hip measurement and I'll mark. All the measurement I'm marking from the shoulder are actually measurements you add ½ inch to. But since our back piece is bigger than the front piece, there is no point. So I've already added that to the back piece. So you could see I also marked the hip measurement on the hip line, and I'll be joining that curve to the chest. So I'll be adding 3/4 inch for my sewing allowance all through. You can add just ½ inch if you want. I'm adding 3/4 inch just for safety because I don't want a situation where after cutting everything will just become a problem. That is why I'm adding 3/4. You can even add as much as 1 inch if you know what you are doing. So I'll be joining all my initial measurement points, and that is the chest, tummy, hip, and top length line. And I would also be joining all the extra 3/4 inch I added to create another parallel line to that line. The next line I'll be making is the folding on the side line, and I'll be adding 1 inch. I don't really like that part to be too big. If you want yours to be bigger, you can add 1.5 or even 2 inches. So I'll also be joining. Then from that hip line, I'll make a diagonal line to meet that excess line like that. Before anything, I already marked 2 inches all through and used my ruler to make a straight line. So I actually placed the front piece on that 2 inches line, and I'm making use of my pin now to hold it down And the next thing I'm doing is to cut my slant. So my shoulder slant of the back and the front piece should be exactly the same. I'll remove my pin, readjust by 2 inches. So like I said earlier, when I was taking my shoulder to chest, shoulder to tummy, I never added any excess for sewing allowance. So the sewing allowance would be, the excesses on the top will be responsible for the sewing allowance I used in joining both shoulders. The sewing allowance I never considered when I was taking my shoulder to chest, or my shoulder to tummy, or my shoulder to hip and top length. So I'll be making use of my pin to hold everything down on that 2 inches pleating line. Then I'll be folding the excesses of the back piece on to the front to meet the shoulder of the front. So I'll fold the back piece like that to meet the shoulder of the front, and I'll be cutting the neckline of the back piece. So this is pretty simple. Where that point meets the neckline of the front piece, I'll make a curve like that. So after making a curve, I'll be making use of my scissors to cut out that curve, and that's just how you create the neckline of your back piece. You don't really need to take any measurements, you just follow the measurement of the front piece. Now from that 2 inches point, I took my back measurement and I marked. So what I got, I marked, and I'll be taking that line straight down to the chest, and I'll be marking that center point I took for the front piece as well. Only this time I'll be returning the excess 1 inch I removed. So I returned it back to the back piece, and I'll be making my cut. So I'll make my cut through the armhole point like that. Then I'll also cut through the side like that. And that is just the way you create your back piece. You don't really need your tape rule for the creation of your back piece. You just use your front piece to cut out the back piece. So I'll be removing my pins. After removing my pins, I would have succeeded in creating the front and also the back piece. So that line will be sewed upon, and when you sew it, I'll show you exactly how you create the pleating